Keisuke with refined aggression is swinging his car into the corner, turning in the front tires at their deformation limit. For the short moments of slight turn in of the front end, the rears use their static outside toe. This, with the thrust of the steering wheel swinging the car, puts the rear tires in a slipping state, and immediately the rear wheels progress to a same way rear wheel steering action, keeping a decent steering angle in the front with the rears in the grey zone margin between grip and slip. Keisuke controls the rear tires at a point within the margin leaning toward gripping, hence the rear wheel's two effects of sliding in rotation and pushing the car in the direction it's pointing is more leaning towards pushing in the direction it's pointing, demanding rotation from the front end to balance out the car on the racing line Keisuke wants. In this rotation, Keisuke is taking full advantage of his rear wheel steering system, shortening his turning circle, hence having the ability to rotate super sharp, and due to his tire slip bias toward grip in the margin, sometimes it used the power to slip the rears, rotating and accelerating, and so knowing that he shortens his turning circle, rotating sharper without losing traction, while he can enter corners faster, maintaining a speed on a smooth sweeping racing line, opening the car. Once he properly refined his technique so that time slowed down, he could easily adjust which tires do more rotation while maintaining the same racing line in case of the front or rears overheating, as easy as pulling an elastic band. The way Keisuke would deploy his technique though is very different for different corners. He developed an incredible fluidity, being able to use his technique to send his car to the max. Sometimes his thrust of the front end would be more gentle, just turning in. Sometimes he used the throttle to control the rear tires at the desired chemistry, as I already mentioned, but sometimes he would pull off a grip maintaining Kansai Drifto, the Scandi flicker, inertial drift, and on the second swing turning into the corner he would brake. This deaccelerates the car and changes its trajectory so fast it is unmatched. Charles Leclerc and Hojo also pull off something similar to this, but also involving something else I'm going to mention. Listen carefully so you don't miss it, put the two and two together, I want to see it in the comments. Ryosuke Takahashi, Keisuke's brother on the other hand, rather enters corners slightly earlier, initiating the rear tire slip angle using engine braking rather than foot braking or throttle to lift up the wheel speed ratio. It's actually the total opposite of lifting up the wheel speed ratio. He's dropping the wheel speed ratio. The engine braking would act as a refined handbrake, slowing down the rear wheels at such a rapid pace, such a rapid big difference to the speed they're rotating on the road, to the point where they don't have the grip to hold the road and they have to slip a little. And the tire slip would cause the rear end to go wide from its own inertia, and those rear tires are dragging, producing the fruit of lifted wheel speed ratio slip angle, but rather with a negative wheel speed ratio, dragging the rear tires. He controls a low slip angle, maintaining enough grip for the rear tires to shorten their turning circle in a different way, rather with his racing line being a super late apex V line, early peak rotation letting him face the exit almost already from entry, and because he uses engine braking to slip the rear tires, the tires are dragged and want to get back their grip, and at the perfect timing, Ryosuke lets the rear tires gain their grip back as he exits the corner on full throttle. Ryosuke is a missile out of the corners. Keisuke is controlling his tires in the chemistry, holding it there in a sweet spot, while Ryosuke is throwing his car into a state with the trajectory toward the apex, letting it gravitate towards it, gaining back its grip to exit with full throttle. Both extremely fast techniques, extremely hard to master, and demanding a perfectly tuned car. This would actually be the perfect time for me to explain the tunes of their Mazda RX-7s. The rear wheel steering of the RX-7 is not like the Benetton of Michael Schumacher. Schumacher's Benetton in really slow corners would have opposing rear wheel steering. Mid-speed and fast corners would have the same directed rear wheel steering, but rather in the RX-7, static tune, the rear end has a little bit of outside toe and so does the front. As soon as the G's build up as we go further in the corner, it progresses to inside toe, although the FC behaves like it's rather in two stages than progressing like the FD. In crucial detail, On compression, the loaded outside wheel having the most grip gets inside toe, accomplishing half the job of rear wheel steering. You would think that the inside rear wheel should also have it like the outside rear wheel steering in the same direction as the front wheels. But the RX-7 stock has very soft suspension, and so the inside wheel on rebound rather has an opposing angle inside toe so that it doesn't drag when it doesn't have the sufficient grip due to the lack of weight. But Keisuke's RX-7 is not a stock thing for the general public. She's a Toge veteran, just like her driver. Keisuke needed the unfiltered samurai whose true refined sharpness he can take advantage of and display his technique with. This involved proper, efficient rear wheel steering. What Keisuke and Project D did is tune his suspension extremely stiff and drop the ride height near ground effect level. This meant there'd be much less body roll, much faster weight transfer, and most of all tighten his anti-roll bars to quite an extreme level, so that during cornering, as the outside suspension compresses, the inside suspension won't decompress, rebounding, letting the inside wheel droop down, so that the outside wheel has aggressive inside toe while the inside wheel has none. Ryosuke, on the other hand, just wants grip. The car suspension is only there to provide Ryosuke with one thing: grip. Rest is Ryosuke's job. His suspension is also hard like Keisuke's, stiffer than Keisuke's actually, but the rear anti-roll bar is softer. Therefore, the rear wheels are towing against each other in mid-corner very aggressively. And he perfected his technique for this car. These two are definitely legends for a reason. I'm not sure if you understand how dangerously crazy Keisuke's technique is. If Keisuke can shorten his turning circle, rotate so sharply, and raise his top speed so high with his RX-7, well, what did he do in a Benetton? Through maggots and beckets, I don't think he'd even lift off the throttle. The G-force would literally physically be mind-bending. The magnitude of this, there's a reason some people would say, oh no, that's impossible. But in reality, it's just because it's too hard. You don't see it much in real life because it's so hard. Drivers come close to accomplishing techniques like this, and it is possible. But there's a reason Keisuke thrashed the NSX of Go Hojo. Go Hojo coming to a long sweeping hairpin, breaks into the corner as he turns in very slightly to angle his car, change the trajectory for the corner. He turns in with his foot still on the brake at a lower level, trailing in very deep, rotating his NSX with the brakes until he hits the apex, where he accelerates out of the corner with the throttle on a level that sometimes just exceeds the tire deformation potential by a little bit to rotate and accelerate out of the corner. Just like Michael Schumacher. For shorter corners, go downshifts aggressively engine braking as he throws his NSX-R into the corner with one refined aggressive swing of the steering wheel, holding it there, darting toward the corner apex, then ricocheting off it onto the next one, just like Charles Leclerc. And it doesn't end here. The scary truth is, well, Go Hojo is Charles Leclerc. As we have just seen, they have the exact same technique, and both of them now and then drive like Schumacher. But Go and Charles are more alike than you think. It's about to get scary. Somewhere else where they're alike, while they are both adrenaline specialists. You can see it in their faces. Come on. Let me explain something before we go any further. When you are driving normally, you reason in your head using all that you know in your subconscious that for the corner coming up in front of you, you need to turn the wheel. Once you reason it out, you open the door to the front lobe to make the decision with a key. I mean, if you think about it, humans do function extremely fast. It is a short time, but it's not short when you're going 300 plus kilometers per hour. But when you drive by instinct, you're giving the keys to your subconscious to automatically make the decisions in the frontal lobe for you, cutting down the time. What you know automatically being displayed on the track. This is the zone. It is simply speed bending, and it is simply lovely. How you train your instincts is by feeding your subconscious with the data on how to respond with inputs to the feedback you receive from your car. Charles Leclerc and Go Hojo specialize in instinctive driving, and the higher the adrenaline, the better. When they need to make up for time lost, they automatically listen to the instincts telling them to take the risk of entering the corner faster, and they use the instinctive innate driving skill to complete the corner. They also have the skill to subconsciously fall into the rhythm of good driving performed in front of them. Ryosuke Takahashi and someone else named Oscar Piastri have a different way of bending speed. And by this 5th stage of Initial D, Keisuke had already joined them and become successful. They trained themselves just like instinctive drivers before battle, but in a slightly different game. A game in consistent lower speed driving, training their brains to soak up data from the car more efficiently. At the slower pace with more anticipation, the driver is forced to think and analyze his driving, completing every millimeter on the road. At the slow pace, the driver picks up where he and his car are not in tune, analyzes it and fixes it. But most importantly, this gets the driver's brain in the rhythm used in the ample time in anticipation, getting them immune to that speed. And so as the driver increases pace, moving up in the game of consistency, the anticipation the brain has at low speed is sustained through the high speed. Time is slowed down for the driver's anticipation. So when they get onto the attack, the speed changes, but their brains don't. They have the same room and time to think about how to take the corner coming up. Thus, they don't ever have to take risks. In the look for a move, Oscar Piastri and Ryosuke Takahashi analyze their opponents. They look for the weak points. They notice when their opponent has gone a millimeter wide. And once they've calculated the chances to the 1,000th, they make their move. And it is always the move that sticks 110%. Whereas on the other hand, Charles Leclerc and Hojo are riding on instinct. When their opponent makes a mistake, they instantly ride beside them, fast as lightning. Charles and Go use instinct to get themselves up to speed. Whereas Oscar, Ryosuke and now Keisuke use their brains to make speed slow down for them. There are advantages to both, and I should mention that there are crossovers. No real experienced racing driver is 100% one-sided, especially not a Formula 1 driver, but there is a bias for each driver. What I can say is, the possible chink in the armor of the instinctive artist could in some cases be imperfectly trained instinct, thus leading to mistakes from risks taken. It's called a risk, but it shouldn't be. Instinct should be perfectly trained so that every risk taken has sufficient skill backing it. Possible chink in the armor of the analysis assassin is incomplete trained speed. So at the limit of pushing, he won't crash, but he might fall behind. It's time to talk about the elephant in the room. I know you're asking, where does Oscar come into this? Why am I talking about him? Well, I think the Initial D was made by the Simpsons, because like I talked about the drivers being similar, Hojo and Leclerc, Takahashi and Piastri, well, the last race of Keisuke Takahashi and Go Hojo was a complete prophecy of 2024 Baku, the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. It couldn't be more clear. I want you to go watch the whole race for yourself. Oscar behind Charles was biding his time, sticking with him, watching him closely, not biting nor threatening him, just waiting like a patient viper. As a viper does not need to bite to taste its prey. Keisuke was biding his time, staying behind him for the first run and through the spurt. No centimeter close sticking to the rear bumper of Go Hojo to pressurize him, but rather the more simple but absolutely breaking pressure of simple consistency. Staying his distance, Charles started speeding, so did Go. Saw the gap at turn 1 and chose to set up the car for a fast exit on the following lap. And then out of the pink, someone shot down the inside, making the earth shake. Oscar Piastri taking the lead with the lunge. Keisuke performed his Kansai Drifto. It was already over. Go try to catch up but just killed his tires. Charles tried to stay with Oscar and he managed to. In every half move, trying to overtake Oscar, trying to get close enough, there was constant questioning. You could see it in the way Charles was driving his Ferrari. And the same was with Go Hojo. This was the race that we saw something scary in Oscar and Keisuke. And this is what makes champions. I truly hope in this year of 2025, Oscar will prevail against McLaren, winning the championship. Probably the part of Oscar's move I love the most is how he stayed absolutely cool. In a super late lunge like this, the margin is extremely small. Demand for precision extremely high, hence potential stress level through the roof. But Oscar pulled off the threshold brake, braking extremely late and hard, at the high limit of grip he had with the downforce of high speed, trailing off as the downforce decreases in deceleration, perfectly at the limit, so that as he starts the first few parts of turn in, he does not lock up his inside tires, and as he trailed off the brake, he kept the front tires at their limit of grip. As he decelerated more, he put in more steering angle to not leave any grip on the table. Well-rounded, perfect move that he made stick. Many other drivers, when you see them making a lunge that deep, they put a load of steering lock at turning in panic of potentially outbraking themselves. But Piastri knew his move before he pulled it off. We have seen a monster.